All right, welcome in to another Auburn Live show. Appreciate everybody joining us. I am Justin Hokanson from auburnlive.com, part of the On3 Sports Network. If you're not a member of auburnlive.com, please go subscribe. It's an awesome site that we're building, and it's going to be fantastic. We've already had a great first few months of building it. So signing day is coming up. Obviously, football is getting into that time of year where Iron Bowl and staff changes potentially, like who knows. So it's a good time to be a part of the site, auburnlive.com. All right, with us today, a very special guest, professional golfer, Auburn fan extraordinaire, Jason Dufner, who I've been trying to catch up with for a while, man. I'm super pumped that he's going to be on the show with us today. Jason, man, what's up?
Yeah, not much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about a little bit about what's going on with me and dive into some Auburn football, maybe some Auburn basketball, all those types of things. And glad to support what you're doing. And I don't do many of these. I know these podcasts and these video things have become super popular. So this is kind of my first step into the big kids pool, so to speak, with these types of things.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you. It's become easy. Like we just record on Zoom and plug the audio in and then take it and put it on YouTube and
work from
not bad. Yeah,
works for everybody.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, let's start with. We're definitely gonna talk mostly for Auburn football, Auburn basketball. But real quick, just catch people up on what you got going on. How's life been lately? And what's new with you, man?
Yeah. So. This is kind of our off season. Golf has kind of a short off season, usually, right around Thanksgiving through the first of the year. This year, a little bit different for me. I just had a stem cell procedure done in my left shoulder. I've had a nagging kind of arthritic condition, nothing that would require surgery, but it's kind of been an issue actually since 2015. You kind of manage it and do the best you can, but kind of noticed that it's, becoming more and more of an issue. And I think it certainly affects what I do day in and day out a little bit with my golf swing and my ability to do what I want to do with my golf swing. So I've had that cleaned up. So I'm kind of no golf now for about 6 weeks, which will maybe be nice. We'll see. I've never really had that luxury. I've always been, practicing and playing and preparing. So I've got no real golf activity for 6 weeks. A lot of physical therapy, rehab workouts. As far as, what I'm doing with my career and stuff, I'm still on the tour. I've lost my full status. I've struggled the last couple of years. But, I'm still pretty committed to trying to play at a high level. I still do the things I feel like I need to do to get better each and every day. Kind of what Bryan Harsin talks about. That's one of the great things I like about Harsin is we're pretty similar on that. He's very process orientated. One day at a time. If you prepare and do these things, over a course of a period of time, you'll have some success. So I'm still pretty dedicated to my golf. Right now, I'm a little bit on the sidelines, so to speak, but I'm looking forward to next year. I'll get 15 to 20 starts, something like that. I'm in a past champions category, which will probably get me about 10 starts out of that category. I've got 5 events that I've won on the tour that will get me into those events that wouldn't necessarily be part of those 10. So that's 15. And then hopefully I'll write some letters and can receive some sponsor exemptions for events that I'm, participated in a lot in the past, and send my resume out there. So a little bit different for me. I've had the luxury of, being fully exempt and doing my schedule and when I wanted to play, which events. So I got to kind of fight a little bit more for it. And we'll see how that goes. It's new for me. I may like the fact that I only have to play 15 to 20 events. It may be refreshing. I may be, more appreciative of the opportunities when they come because it's not, an every week thing for me. And we'll see how the year goes. And that's kind of where I'm at. I have a great career over the last, 10 or 12 years. I played really good golf. Done some, when I started as a professional in 2000, I've pretty much clicked every box that I can think of, winning tournaments, being part of the PGA Tour, playing Ryder Cups, playing President's Cups, winning a major, clicked a lot of the boxes, that I set out to. So I've been fortunate with that, but I still think that I have some good golf left in me.
Yeah, golf, man, that's one. I mean, it's one of those sports that I play casually, right? But like, that's one of those ones that just watching it over the years, I guess it's different than other sports. I mean, it's different in the same. You just can't press it, right? Like if you're going through something, I guess in some sports you can exert more effort and
Right.
like football, maybe there's times where you're just like, I'm going to give everything I've got and I'm going to,
Try
create this
harder.
energy. You can't do that in golf. Like golf, you can't just be like, all right, I'm just going to buckle down, and it just doesn't, you can't turn it on and off, I guess, like that.
Unfortunately, with golf, I think one of the things people don't realize is that sometimes the hard work and the preparation don't always equal the results that you want. There's a lot of factors that go into playing well. There is some luck involved with the game of golf. A lot of times guys execute shots how they want to, and they missed a factor. Maybe the wind was a little bit stronger, maybe the green was a little bit less receptive, maybe you misjudged the lie that you had, and every shot has very drastic consequences if not executed properly. And we don't have any teammates out there. If I'm having a bad day, I can't rely on the defense to maybe play a little bit better and keep me in the game. I can't rely on a wide receiver to make an amazing play and score a touchdown. So it's tough. I think, as I've gotten older, it's become a little bit tougher. I think things that used to be easy and maybe that I took for granted aren't quite as easy as they used to be. I think that's the truth for all athletes. As you get older, things that used to come, very casually become a little bit tougher. Sometimes the consistency isn't there. I think the consistency has been the hardest thing for me. A couple of weeks ago, I played in Houston. I felt really good going into the week. I shot 4 under the first day, was in 4th place. Feeling good about my game, feeling good about how the week had started. Went and played Friday and, shot, I think 76 and missed the cut by 1. So just the consistency is becomes more difficult. So we'll see. Golf's become a little bit more of a young man's game. I think 5 to 10 years ago, guys were doing really well in their mid 30s to early 40s. You see a lot of guys in their 20s coming right out of college or, 2 or 3 years having a lot of success. So that's kind of, bumped maybe the 40 plus guys into a little bit different space mentally. I think it's more difficult. You don't see a lot of guys, at my age, early 40s to 50s having a lot of success. Obviously, Phil Mickelson last year winning a major, but he's a generational talent,
Yeah.
I still enjoy competing and playing. I still enjoy the challenge of the game and trying to be as good as I can be. How good is that? How does that compare to the rest of the PGA Tour? Hasn't been that great the last couple of years, but I feel like on certain weeks, on certain golf courses, if I'm healthy and I can compete and have some good weeks and maybe get another win or two in these kind of twilight years of my golfing career.
Yeah, gosh, man, I could talk. We could have a whole separate show on golf. But one more question before we move on to Auburn. What? Because somebody brought it up on our message board, and when I told him, "Hey, I'm going to talk to Jason Dufner. What do you, is there anything you want to throw out?" And somebody asked, like, long term, like, do you just want to keep playing Champions Tour, or is there like a point where maybe you would want to do something different with your life, or are you just like, hey, I'm gonna when it's the age limit, whatever, I'm gonna move on to the next tour, or what?
Yeah, I've always talked about, I feel like when you're done, you're done. With golf, obviously, it's a little different. There is the Champions Tour, which I'd be fully exempt for and could play if need be. But, I don't know. I don't know. Right now, I just kind of take it year by year, and I still feel like I can play pretty competitively on the PGA Tour. Maybe there'll be a day where I don't feel that way and I take some time off. And maybe I don't miss the game of golf. I don't know. I've never been in that position. So, I'd have to see when I step away from playing the PGA Tour, maybe I won't ever want to play competitively again, or, maybe a year off and I'll have that itch again to get back out and be competitive. When you're a professional athlete, and certainly as a professional golfer, all you really do is focus on your profession. Like 85-90% of my focus is what I need to do to play good golf. So I've never really thought about like, what would I do if golf wasn't part of my life? I have interests, I have other things, but I don't know if I would enjoy doing them or not. I've just always been so involved with golf. It's been such a big part of my life. It's hard for me to answer,
Yeah.
100% accurate. This is how things will play out.
Yeah. I was lying about last question. How excited were you about just watching the guys win the Ryder Cup in the fashion they did recently? I mean, just blitzed them.
Yeah, I was part of one Ryder Cup in 2000. What was that? 2012? No, yeah, 2012, Chicago. And we had a lead and lost. The Ryder Cup's completely different than any other golfing event that I've played in. I loved the team atmosphere. I felt very comfortable on the Thursdays and for Fridays and Saturday matches where you had a teammate. That was refreshing to me. Sunday, when you're on by yourself and alone, was extremely challenging. But I was happy for the guys. A lot of the guys on the team I'm friends with. I think the Americans can probably put a pretty good run together. We've got a lot of young guys that are in their mid-20s to early 30s that are extremely competitive and extremely good at golf. And I think we can put a run together over the next, 4 or 5 Ryder Cups where the U.S. might be the ones holding the cup at the end of the week. So it was good to see. And how they won was fantastic. Not much stress on Sunday.
No, they smoked them. All right, let's talk some Auburn athletics, Auburn football. We'll start with Auburn football because I think most people know that you are a big time supporter, big time follower. You pay attention. You're connected to it, and you're well versed in Auburn football and what it takes to win and past coaches. I know you had a friendship with Gus Malzahn and stuff, and so. I guess just what have your impressions been? We're heading into the Iron Bowl. Auburn's 6-5. Rough few weeks for Auburn and Bryan Harsin. I guess first, have you had an opportunity to meet him? And then past that, just what are your impressions of him and what he's trying to do with the program at this point?
Yeah, I have not been over there. I have not met Coach Harsin. I haven't been over at the facility. I was good friends with Gus, and he extended, a lot of hospitality towards my way. I pretty much was over there as much as I wanted to be, and that was great. And I got to see, how things run in a big-time college football program. I haven't had that opportunity with Coach Harsin. I like Coach Harsin. I think he's a really good football coach. I think what he did at Boise State, extremely, extremely impressive. I think when we went through that search, I think we looked at some other guys at first, maybe that had Power 5 experience at some levels. And when those leads kind of ended, I think Allen went with possibly the best fit and possibly the best resume. If you look at Coach Harsin's resume of non-Power 5 schools, you can't really argue he would be the best guy. Watching him from a distance, I love the things that he talks about the process, the preparation, all those types of things. I'm very impressed with those things. I think coming to Auburn right now in this situation is a difficult task for Harsin and his staff. I think we talked a little bit off camera. We've had a lot of attrition with our recruiting classes. I think a lot of guys have left. I would even say some attrition of talent. We've recruited highly ranked players that haven't really played at that ranking level. Now, I'm not in the ins and outs of recruiting and how these kids are evaluated by these sites or these coaches, but as a fan, all I can go is off the ranking boards, right? And as a fan, the ranking boards seem to be fairly accurate because when I watch those playoff games at the end of the year, usually 3 of those teams are in the top 5 in those recruiting rankings. We can all pick out, it's usually Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and then there's always a curveball team. Maybe it's Notre Dame, maybe it's Oregon, maybe it's, there's always a random 4th team, but Georgia's always in the mix, Bama's always in the mix, Ohio State's always in the mix, Oklahoma's always in the mix. Those teams always recruit the best to me. So I think the roster is a little depleted of talent, in my opinion. And I think it's a tough situation. We play Alabama, we play Georgia, we play Texas A&M. Come up strong on the rise in their recruiting, and that coincides with their program getting better. We play LSU every year, who's had a couple down years, but they generally recruit and have a very high talent level on their team. So it's tough when you play those 4 teams every year, in my opinion, and you're kind of behind on the talent level. So how do we get better with the recruiting would be my first question. Is the new facility going to help us that much? Yeah. It's not surprising that he struggled a little bit. A lot of first-year coaches struggle coming in, putting their culture in place. He doesn't really have a relationship past this year with these kids, so I'm sure there's a little bit of a dynamic there. And I'm not really judging him so much on his first year, but I'm a little concerned about how recruiting is going for him. I want to see how that's going to finish out, because I think talent-wise, when we play these schools that are these big names in college, we play them every year. We don't have the luxury of seeing Georgia in the playoffs. We play them every year. You know what I mean? Yep. So I think Auburn's a tough job. I think he can do a good job. I think a lot of it's going to be based on him. What can he do to recruit at a higher level? How can we get that done? And if we can't recruit at a higher level, what can we do to balance that out a little bit? And I always look at offenses. I look at somebody like Lane Kiffin or Mike Leach or some of these explosive offenses. They balance that talent gap out by doing dynamic, creative things on offense. And I don't quite see that with Auburn and what he has going on right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. From what you I think you talked about it a lot, about what Auburn sort of needs as a program. One of the things that I like about Harsin is, I think, from simply an approach perspective and a culture perspective, I like what I hear and see from him. I think he's a guy that can build a program, build a consistent program. He didn't build it in Boise, but he kept it going. But I just think a lot of the things that he expects and the standards that he expects, to me, say he's going to be consistent and his program is going to be consistent. Obviously, he has to recruit and he has to hire the right assistants, and you got to land the right coordinators. Like, that's massive. But I do like him in terms of, I think, what Auburn wants, which is just a consistent, compete consistently, and don't play the roller coaster game, which I think is what we got with Gus Malzahn. We had some great years, and then we had some Birmingham Bowl years, and it was just a lot of that. And so I think that's what Auburn fans would like differently. Like, just show me that every year we're not going to have holes in recruiting. We're not one year going to have no offensive linemen or things like that. And so what shocked me, though, man, is the last 3 weeks has been obviously rough. And I don't know if it's the landscape of college football. You got LSU and Florida and USC, all these firings are just happening 7 games into the season. And I don't know if it's just caused Auburn fans to just immediately look at Harsin at the same time period of these losses and go, "Oh, do we have the right guy?" It's been weird. I'm like, if we're in a world where 1 year in, less than 1 year, the season's not even done, and you're talking about whether or not he's the right guy, it's just, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, Harsin had leads in these games. They blew the lead. It's not like A&M was a bad loss, but they're up. They just blew the lead against State. They blew it against Carolina. I don't know what's your take on just kind of.
I think some of it is the landscape of college football. I think these universities are paying out so much money to these coaches, and it's hard to get a return on that. Let's just be honest. There's only one team that can win the national championship. There's only going to be one team that can win an SEC championship. So, when you're starting to dole out 5 million plus, a lot of these schools are state employees, or a lot of the schools are state schools. So these guys are state employees and they're making $5, $6, $7, $8 million. They want results quick, they don't want to see regression. So I think some of it has to do with the landscape. It's shocking to me. Like, I don't know Dan Mullen. I've watched Dan Mullen from afar. He seems to be a pretty good college coach, a great offensive mind, a little brash here and there, I think, with the media at times. I think that rubs some folks the wrong way. But the guy went to the SEC championship game last year, and I believe they lost by 6 points to the team that won the national championship. And then 9 months later, he's fired. And they're paying him to leave, which is amazing to me, too. So I think, the landscape of college football is tough. I think the money that these guys are making, people demand results, but I don't know how accurate it is to demand those results. It's hard. I mean, like I just told you, when we watched the end of the year, it's the same teams that we're having the same conversations about for those final 4 spots. This year, Cincinnati's that wild card team, I would say, but it's probably going to be like Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Cincinnati. Those are basically the 5 teams. And 4 of those 5 teams are always involved in the conversation. So it's hard. I think, I don't think Auburn fans should be worried about, we have to fire the coach because of the last 3 weeks. I think, last week was a weird week. I thought the defense played pretty well. They gave up 21 points. 7 of those was on a short field. But the offense struggled. They weren't able to put up points. I didn't see the Mississippi State game. I was traveling, but obviously some things happened. But I think that's where someone like Mike Leach is an advantage for a school like Mississippi State, right? You can't tell me that Will Rogers is a more talented player than Bo Nix, but because of what Mike Leach runs, he made Will Rogers successful and was able to, score a lot of points in the second half and win a football game. That's what those coaches will get you. They may not get you 10 wins every year, but Mike Leach is going to beat LSU last year. He's going to beat Auburn this year. And I think if Auburn can't recruit with the Bamas and the Georgias and the LSUs and the Texas A&Ms now, like they've hired a huge coach in Jimbo Fisher. They have a huge amount of money to support him and what he needs to do. Like, they're a factor in the West going forward, in my opinion. Auburn needs to figure out, how can we be more dynamic on offense? How can we play with tempo? How can we get the ball out on time? How can we play fast? I think that's one of the biggest things that Gus Malzahn struggled with, is when he stopped playing fast, right? That was an advantage for him.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was the rules or a change in philosophy, I don't know. But the offense struggled once he stopped playing fast. So I think for Coach Harsin to be successful, he's got to recruit at a comparable level as to what Gus did, maybe even a little better. I'm hoping that the new facility will help that. I'm hoping the NIL things will help. I'm hoping the university gets involved with the NIL thing, so that they have, these opportunities for these kids. I mean, the ones where the kids just kind of get it on their own, that doesn't really help Auburn in any way. They're hiring agencies or whatever they're doing. And, Bo has got to deal with Milo's or whoever. That doesn't really help the university or recruiting. It's helping Bo Nix, but how does Auburn make it to where the NIL becomes beneficial for them in the recruiting game? I think is super, super important. And then I would like to see them, find a way to be more dynamic. in the offense, especially the passing game. I think perfect example is Matt Corral. Matt Corral was pretty average or possibly below average SEC quarterback before Lane Kiffin got there. And you saw some improvements last year, and now all of a sudden he's in the Heisman. I think Bo Nix, Matt Corral. I mean, I would even say Bo Nix probably more talented than Matt Corral, but being in different systems, it shows out differently. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of the things you said. The NIL is interesting. I mean, Auburn's going to have to harness that and I think do a better job. And we've seen some NIL deals, but yeah, I think Auburn's going to have to, and I think everybody's trying to figure that out. I think that's where Auburn is. I think they're trying to figure out how to manage it, how to use, elevate the players, but also use it to their advantage and say, we have a structure that we can create these opportunities for you. The
Right.
facility will be big. I mean, that's a game changer, that facility, when it's done. That's a big time deal, man. That's going to be a fantastic thing to show kids and show recruits. And so that's a when people talk about Harsin and can he recruit, we'll let him let's get into that, man. Let's that thing's going to be big. What do you? I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like where Auburn is right now is to me is kind of an odd place. And I know you know people up there and you're connected and all that. So I'm not gonna put you in any weird situations. You can say whatever you want to say, but it's an odd situation the way the Gus Malzahn era ended. Kevin Steele and that whole situation, and then Alan Green, like you said, kind of goes out and gets it. Bryan Harsin. Who I think in a lot of ways is a good fit for Auburn. There's a lot of things about, I mean, I've heard, not just me, I've heard a lot of people involved compare him to Pat Dye in his approach and how he looks at football. Like, I've heard good things about how he wants to build a program. Like, I think his personality, I think what he believes in, like, I think there's a lot of good things there. But the situation with Alan Green is I think we all at this point know that is up in the air. And so I just wonder about where Harsin's at, where Auburn's at. I think Harsin needs a win, man. Not saying he has to beat Alabama, but he needs maybe a bowl win. He needs positive momentum. He needs recruiting. He needs a good, hiring some good coordinators. He just needs to get some positive momentum going. Because I feel like we're just sort of in this transition period of people that wanted Gus to stay, people that wanted Kevin Steele, people that maybe didn't want Harsin, and then Alan Green wanted Harsin, but Alan Green might not be here. So it's just, there's a lot going on. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on. Harsin needs, which I think is the more reason why fans need to take a time out on. Don't worry about everything happening on the outside. Like, I get that you're like, oh, everybody's getting a coach who, you got to, I think, a coach that knows what it's going to take to build a winner. Like, let's just give him an opportunity here. I don't know. What's your take on this, kind of where everything's at?
I think one point that I will make is that Auburn people, Auburn fans, even people that work in the athletic department, in my opinion, are very concerned about what other schools are doing more than they should be, right? I don't ever think about Alabama and what they're doing other than one day a year. I don't really care what they're doing. It has no effect on Auburn. I think Auburn needs to focus on what can we do better to be better. I think, like you said, you can get very distracted with all these things happening in Florida, LSU, Georgia, Bama, all these things, right? And it doesn't help that, Alabama's built this great dynasty and they're our biggest rival. And I get that. You want to be at that position. But, focusing and fixating on what other schools are doing, I think is very harmful to Auburn and what we're trying to achieve. I would agree with you that patience could be pretty thin with Coach Harsin. 1 year, fine. 2 years, probably fine. But if after that third year the wins aren't coming, I could see people kind of losing their patience with him that make the decisions for Auburn and the athletics. Like you said, there's a little bit of division. Like you said, there's some people that think Gus probably should have been given another year. There's some people that wanted Kevin Steele. There's some people that are good with Coach Harsin. So it's a little divided right now, and all those things will play out how they play out. Gus is gone. Gus, I think, did a great job at Auburn for a period of time. If you look at what Gus did, he's only been a head coach for like 9 years, I think. There's not a lot of people that have a resume that says what his does after 9 years, maybe 10 years. You'd have to look at that. It's 9 or 10 years he's been a head coach. He did a lot of great things here, but I will agree that his time had probably come up, and it was probably time to look for a new guy. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm with you. I think Harsin needs a win some way, somehow. I don't know how recruiting is going. I can only look at the rankings and what the rankings say. So that's discouraging to me. But maybe he has some guys lined up in the next couple of weeks that'll improve that and, make that happen. Maybe he needs a bowl win. Maybe it'll be a good thing to go to a lesser bowl, have a talent advantage and win. But yeah, I'm with you. He needs a win. I think next year will be pretty pivotal. He's got to make some decisions. You guys talked about it yesterday on the J-Boy show. He's got to make some decisions. I think as a head coach, it's a new experience for him in the SEC, right? You assess what went right, what went wrong, what changes, evaluate. I think he's going to evaluate some things. And I mean, he already fired one coach this year, so he doesn't seem to have a problem firing people if he feels like it's not the right situation. So we'll see. I can't imagine that when he looks back week after week, especially the last couple weeks, not so much against Mississippi State, but a little bit against Mississippi State because they had opportunities to take that lead back and couldn't get it. I wouldn't say that he's overly excited about what the offense has done the last couple of weeks.
No.
And people will say, "Oh, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball." That's fine and dandy, but when defenses know that all you can really do is run the football, they load the box, and then all of a sudden it becomes harder to run the football.
Yeah.
So, I know against South Carolina it looked pretty easy, but maybe there were some adjustments made by South Carolina that they felt like, oh, they're loading the box, they're getting different looks. Let's take some chances in the passing game. But for me in Auburn football, I think Coach Harsin can be a good fit. Like I said, I love the things that I hear and see about his approach to the way he manages it. I feel like he's more of a CEO. I think he hires people and lets them do their jobs, but doesn't micromanage and has a holistic approach to what guys are doing. I think that's a great way to go about it. And he's trying to develop a culture and get his system in place. And I think those are great things. I think, we've touched on, I think he needs to recruit at a high level. That has to happen in the SEC. He has to be excited about it. He has to be passionate about it because those other coaches are excited and passionate about it. They live it every day because they know that's what makes the difference in the SEC. And I would like to see him find a way to be more dynamic, more explosive on the offense side of the ball.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to recruit with the Alabamas and the Georgias. So sure. I think you gotta kind of throw some tricks of the trade in there, so to speak. I don't know if you can play pro style at the talent disadvantage that we have. It's just hard, right?
Yeah, you're about to see what that looks like this Saturday. Of course, Auburn's got a backup quarterback, and I think Carson's got to close the gap in the trenches. That's probably his biggest challenge to me. In where Gus left Auburn, I think both sides of the trenches. I think you have to close the gap somehow. That's where the game's won and lost, and especially right now,
yeah,
the talent's just being gobbled up, and so you got to stay close there, or all the talented receivers don't matter. I mean, you can look at whether it's Xavion Capers or Kobe Hudson or Javaris Johnson. I mean, these are all Gus landed 4 stars there, but if the line's not there, if the trenches aren't there, then none of that stuff is
not enough time to throw the football. I think in that style. I think when Auburn's successful in the passing game, whether it's Bo Nix or whether it's TJ Finley this year, the ball's out quick. It's out on time. The routes are, fast developing routes. When we've struggled the most is obviously every team struggles when you're in 3rd and long situations, and plays that take time to develop, right? Because we don't have the offensive line protection that maybe we need for those types of plays to develop.
Yeah.
And I think on defense, I think Derek Mason's taken a lot of heat, but I think it's challenging for Derek Mason to find ways to get pressure on the quarterback, right? We don't win a lot of the one-on-ones. Everybody would love to have the luxury that Georgia does and rush 4 and drop 7 and get pressure, right? That's the model. If you can rush 4, get pressure, and drop 7, makes it hard for the other team, right? I think Derek understands that maybe we don't have as much talent on the defensive line to rush the passer, so he's going to play a lot more coverage and try to keep it in front of you, so to speak. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think offensive line, defensive line, huge needs for Coach Harsin, and maybe a little change in philosophy on offense. How can we, score some points, be a little bit more explosive, trick some people a little bit with some route combinations and things like that. I watch a lot of football, and the teams that don't have the talent, they run a lot of different stuff than what I see Auburn running.
Yeah. If Auburn's going to stay in this style, which I don't have a whole lot of problems with, the offensive line's got to be rebuilt. That's the part that's lacking with them. And then they need some more playmakers at wideout, but it needs to start on that offensive line. You said something a second ago that I think was an important point, and it reminded me of something that Bryan Harsin said. Gosh, I don't know, like in the fall, something very, very early on, and he said, since he was hired, he goes, after he was hired for a certain period of time, he goes, all I heard about was Alabama, Clemson, LSU. He goes, we got to fix Auburn first.
Yeah.
We got to get our own affairs in order, and we got to build our own program. And I think people need to be reminded of that, now. Like I'm almost going to go find that quote from Harsin and like retweet it, because he was, and it was just, and even he said it the other day about the Iron Bowl. He said the first question he was asked after he gave his introductory press conference, the first thing somebody said was something about the Iron Bowl in Alabama. And he understands that, but I just think his personality is exactly what Auburn needs. He's not caught up in, he obviously wants to be at Auburn, and he thinks a lot of Auburn, but he the way he thinks, he's not, I don't know, he doesn't think necessarily like somebody that's been in the Auburn bubble for a decade. He's coming from the outside and going, guys, I mean, I understand Bama, I get it, but we got to do things. We got to figure out some things in our own house and figure out things. And then we don't need to be talking about, well, look at Alabama's so good, and Georgia's so good, and who's else are you going to hire? And he's like, that's not, what are y'all doing? That's not matter. That's why I like him so much. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my least favorite things Auburn people do is root against Alabama in Alabama football games. I'm like, why do you even care? Why does it matter?
Yeah.
I don't. The week they lost to Texas A&M. I think we lost too. Did we play? I think we played Georgia that week.
Might have been.
Yeah. So I had friends over, and we lose to Georgia, so they're upset, right? But then it was almost like Alabama losing to Texas A&M would override the loss that we just had to Georgia and made them happy again. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, so you'd rather have Alabama lose games than Auburn win games? Like, doesn't make any sense to me. But, I didn't grow up in Alabama, so I don't have that, deep-rooted sense of hate and passion and all these things that go on with the Auburn-Alabama rivalry. I'm an Auburn guy. I went to school here. I love Auburn, and I try to focus on what can Auburn do better, and not worry about all these peripheral things that are going on. So I don't know. We'll see how. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen on Saturday. I know a lot of people like to talk about, oh, we know this. We know how things are going to play out. But in sports, you just don't. Clearly, it'll be a challenging game on Saturday. I think most people will say that Alabama has an advantage, but that's the great thing about sports. Sometimes the advantage doesn't matter as much. So we'll see. Maybe that'll be a win that will help Harsin going forward. We need some momentum for sure, especially going into this recruiting period. I think this new recruiting period has made it really, really difficult with this early signing. If you're not on top of it early, there's not much left afterwards. I think I read somewhere of the top 300 guys last year, 240 signed on the early period. So now you're stuck with, 60 of the top 300 left. So it's slim pickings after this first one. I will say one thing about Auburn recruiting that they've done well is we seem to be able to develop, the guys outside of the top 200 really well. If you look at a lot of guys that we've had in the past 10 years or so, I think Gus did a great job with that. Guys like Roger McCreary, who's playing right now, someone like Seth Williams, who was an all SEC player, McLean, the linebacker, wasn't, top. I think we do really, really well with developing, less ranked players in the recruiting. But I still think we need to try and we need to figure out how we can get more top 200 guys. I don't know how that happens. But I know the teams that have the most top 200 guys are generally playing at a pretty darn high level.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think winning one, I think this football facility and NIL are massive parts of it. They can bring a kid in and go and show them this brand new football facility, and then at the same time say, hey, also we have a complete NIL plan in place. This is how we set our players up. This is the opportunities that we can get them. This is sort of how we handle it. This is how we promote you. That's where it's going. And so yeah. Alabama's been doing that in terms of getting you to the league. That's been their pitch. They're just going, look, we're going to make you a millionaire. Look at Auburn needs that with NIL. Everybody now has an opportunity. You don't necessarily have to. The league is an important one, but you can also point and say, yeah, we're going to develop you for the league. We got plenty of players in the league, but we also can develop you as an entrepreneur. We can set you up. You can do a commercial. You can expand that part of your personality. We have a whole team that'll help you. That's going to be a big part of it.
The key component. And I hope we aren't behind on it. I mean, we're just building a football facility. There's teams that have had these types of facilities for 5+ years. I think we missed a big opportunity in 2010 with the national championship to, fundraise, start being start thinking forward about where things are going, and could have been ahead of it, but we missed it. So I hope that we don't miss out on the NIL thing as well, because I think that'll even get us further behind. I think, schools like Georgia and Alabama and LSU, how do they recruit? They recruit on, we win championships here. We're in championship conversations. NFL guys, I think, we put a lot of guys in the NFL. Our facilities are great. And then I think the fourth thing that the kids look at is the relationships with the coaches. I think we do great with that last one in the past, but the other three, not as great. So it's been, hard. I think if we had a really good facility, I feel like the facility's got to be better than anybody's, in all honesty, because of the first two components I talked about, right? Being in the conversation for championships, guys in the NFL probably lack behind these big schools that we recruit against. But if our facilities were better than theirs, and our, relationships with the coaches were better, and then our NILs were better, then, maybe we'd be more competitive. So they've got some things to figure out. And we'll see.
Let's talk. We will see. It's always interesting in Auburn. Let's talk about basketball real quick before we get out of here. Bruce Pearl has a top 25 team. They're heading to the Bahamas. That'll be a fun tournament. They play UConn, could potentially play Michigan State. We'll see how far they go. What are just your impressions? I know you've been to basketball games. I'm a huge basketball guy, so I really enjoy a good basketball team and a good basketball atmosphere, and what Auburn is and Auburn Arena. Man, I think Auburn basketball games over the past 3-4 years, to me personally, they're more fun for me than a football game. I think the atmospheres at Auburn basketball games and really good games when it's packed out inside that arena are phenomenal. But just what
Yeah.
what have been your impressions of Bruce?
Well,
I know you know Bruce and what they got
I
going
think
on.
Bruce has done an amazing job changing the culture, changing the trajectory of the program, right? It's a thing to go to a basketball game now. And when I was in school, not so much. We had, I think, right at the end of my years when Chris Porter, I see that Sports Illustrated behind you there, when they had those 2 good years and it became a little bit more popular for people to go. But it was not a thing to do in Auburn for a while. So it's become a thing, and there's a lot of great atmosphere and excitement around the basketball program. I think he did a great job this year in the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal is very valuable in basketball, maybe more so than football. I think football it's okay. I think the top teams are probably going to use the transfer portal to their advantage more than somebody like Auburn. Auburn did pretty good. I like a couple of the guys they got this year. The linemen from Northwestern and Kaufman, I think, were good additions. They're good players, but they're not going to change the trajectory of your program, so to speak. I think in basketball, if you get some of these kids in the transfer portal, it can change how your season goes pretty dramatically. I think basketball is a little bit easier with the recruiting because you're only playing 5 kids, starting maybe another 3 or 4. So if you get like one superstar and then a couple complementary pieces, then it's a lot easier in basketball to, take off. I'm excited for the team. I think they should be a top 25, top 15 team all year long, have a lot of success, and trying to win championships. I would assume that their goals over there are to have a competitive season, get into the SEC tournament and compete to win that, and get in that NCAA tournament and onto the Sweet 16 or better would be my guess. He's got a lot of talent over there, and he's done a great job getting people excited about Auburn basketball.
You still go to a bunch of basketball games, right?
Occasionally. I haven't gone as much. The season's hard for me. I don't, usually SEC season starts like in January.
That's true.
And I leave. And then the last couple of years, it's like the week I've been home, they've been like on the road both days. I'll get to a handful of games. I think I'm going to go to a couple after Thanksgiving. I think there's one. Is there one before January this year? I think they play LSU first game.
Yeah, maybe real early, yeah.
Like the 29th or something. So I'll go check them out. I follow them. I'm not a huge basketball guy. I generally gravitate towards football a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I will follow them. I'll watch a game here and there. I'm not going to change my plans to watch a game, but if I'm at home and the game is on TV, I'll watch it. If they're playing a good opponent, I'll go up to the arena. So I want to go check them out this year, though, because they seem to have some exciting pieces and have a chance for a real good season.
Yeah, they should. They should. I mean, obviously, Jabari Smith is worth the price of admission. He'll be gone after this year. He'll go top 10 in the NBA draft, and Walker Kessler is fun to watch. And then they need Alan Flanagan back. He's a fantastic player. When he's back healthy, this team will change again, and I think that's when you'll see what they're fully capable of with Alan Flanagan. Him and Jabari Smith and Kessler, like that's especially him and Jabari specifically on offense. They'll be really, really good. So we'll see how they fare in the Bahamas. They need to be roughed up a little bit. They need to win a game in the Bahamas, but they need to go get put in the fire. The quicker, the better for some of these transfers and some of this team. They just need to figure some things out. And so even if there's some rough patches, it won't be a bad thing. And so we'll kind of see how they develop. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on. I want to have you on again soon, as soon as we can. And
yeah, no problem. You got
your insight.
You got my info, and I'm happy to oblige when I have time, just to chat about the current state of Auburn athletics, or whatever else you want to dive into. I don't think I'm definitely discouraged a little bit, and I think I'm a little apathetic at times with the football team and the things that have been going on. But I'm hopeful that we can turn the corner. Obviously, 6-5, possibly 6-6, even 7-5. Nobody's really excited about that. But we'll see. I think recruiting's got to be big. I think maybe there's some people in the transfer portal that can make a difference. And I think he'll make some adjustments with his coaching staff. Honestly, I don't think he can be too excited about how that's gone. But we'll see. We'll see on Saturday how it goes. I think it'll be a good indication of where the kids are at and how they feel about the staff. If they show out and fight and compete, that's one thing I will say about Gus. I never really saw a team quit on Gus, in all honesty.
Yeah.
They played hard for him. They like that guy. Evident in 4 or 5 guys actually leaving here and going to play for him in Central Florida. So I'd like to see how the team responds to the last couple of weeks going to the Iron Bowl. Are they going to let Alabama just come in and do whatever they want? Or are they going to, the Georgia game, I thought Auburn kind of hung in there. A couple plays here and there. Yeah. Could have been a little tight. They played hard. They fought hard. They didn't lay down until, it was 6 minutes to go and it was 34-13 or whatever it was, and the game's pretty much over. So if I can see that would be encouraging. Because I do worry about those, how are the kids responding to the new staff, the new coaches? I think this will be a good opportunity to see, what's going on behind the walls a little bit and in that locker room, how are the kids feeling? I think that matters. I know a lot of the old school folks will say that doesn't matter. Who cares how they feel? They're here to play football. But in this day and age, it matters how the kids feel about those things because, it's just how it is. It's a different day and age.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I told people on our board, I said, they're asking about transfers and things like that on our message board. And I'm like, honestly, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, I think if Harsin's a very particular guy, and so honestly, if there's attrition, I think you should take it as a positive because if they can't, Harsin, you're gonna have to be a very specific player to play to the standard of what Harsin's going to expect. And if there's guys that leave, just view that as a good thing. And so, yeah, we'll see Saturday. I agree with you about players and under Gus and generally played hard. I think this team's generally played hard. They just execution just went down the drain, but we'll see Saturday. If things start to go south and they get down 14 or 17, what happens?
Yeah, I never worry about the attrition thing. Kids leaving. I never worry about kids leaving because if they leave, they don't want to be here.
Yeah,
but it's also not a good thing for your roster, though. You know what I mean? Like you got to replace them.
Yeah. You're Harsin year 1 to 2. I'm okay. To me, that's a sign of Harsin, cleaning house, whatever you want to say. Yeah. You don't want to see that every year because then there's something else.
You get into roster issues, and I think Auburn has a bit of a roster issue. They don't have a lot of seniors and juniors, and I know 5th-year players isn't a big thing now, but I like 5th-year guys. They've developed for a while. They've been here for a while. They're committed to the program. You know what you're going to get from them. We don't have a lot of that going on right now. We got a lot of young guys playing, honestly, outside of offensive line.
Yeah.
Most of the defense is 2nd, 1st-year guys, a couple of 3rd-year guys. So, I worry about that going forward. I think we gotta get our numbers up a little bit. We got to keep guys in the program. Auburn's always been a good program for developing guys, and when you get a heavy senior junior mix, they're real good. The team with Cam was a lot of seniors and a lot of juniors. The team with Jason Campbell and Carlos Rogers, that was a lot of seniors and juniors. And even the team with Nick Marshall, when we went with FSU, was a lot of seniors and juniors. So when we're playing a lot of freshmen and second year freshmen and sophomores, I get a little worried.
Yeah, not ideal.
No, but
Not
yeah, I
ideal.
appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
And we can chat. Maybe we'll convene again after recruiting and reassess where we're at,
Oh, no doubt.
and go from there.
No doubt, man. I appreciate it. Have an awesome Thanksgiving. And for everybody listening, have an awesome Thanksgiving. And we'll see everybody at the Iron Bowl. Hey, it's still, don't be discouraged, fans. Still go, man. Iron Bowl, doesn't matter the records. It stands on its own to be there. It's an Iron Bowl. Be there, make a difference. And
treat it as a social event if you must.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And we'll catch everybody next time.
All right, guys. Thanks.